Okay, so I'm gonna technically make this the second vlog in this, me trying this again. Shooting this right after. I'm gonna try to always be brutally honest on these vlogs, no matter what. Just this is basically actually now the fourth time I essentially turned on the camera and hit record tonight. First two that was supposed to be that first vlog, the volume or the audio had an issue. Unfortunately, the Rode mic is having a problem. I had to get that addressed. But taking actual time to redo that first one. And ended it, I felt semi-coherently within the restrictive time frame that I have to do these things on this camera. But sitting down here, I felt, why not just keep going? And mainly because I want to continue with this, talking out kind of how I want to go about with this narrative of what's happened these last 3 years, right? So essentially, that's the goal, right? Is tell the story of what has happened in my life these last 3 years, and I'm kind of wondering if I want to go. Maybe the way to frame it is actually to maybe give a little more context of where I am at now, and maybe that will allow me to kind of more feel about the better way to start kind of telling that story. It kind of was getting into more of that towards the end of the first vlog, so I kind of feel like maybe that's the way to go. But I have been talking about the fact that I got divorced. I had mentioned that I feel like that was a big part in just not being able to stick with vlogging as a habit before, or when I was doing it before in 2021. And I mean, literally, I did a few of those vlogs at that time. The hope of that time was stick with that. Then that would help me kind of get the habit going and be able to create, actually start creating videos that were marketing and, with some editing and more of a professional feel. And I didn't even get one of those in before I just basically let all that go. I think a big part was just dealing with, the situation with the ex-wife. Well, that's fine. I want to say wife in the context of actually talking about that myself at that time as we were married, but ex-wife. It was a really, really stressful time. I was just in a bad mood a lot. It's interesting to think on it. Because right now, I have been feeling, off probably more so than I've been feeling on, especially these last 2 months. Just again I'm being brutally honest. Let's just frame up what the situation is here. So I was fired. In the beginning of October, and that really that was really rough, because I really loved my job. So I was the chief marketing officer for a law firm here in Florida. I live in St. Petersburg, Florida. So put myself out enough. It's whatever. I don't know why I was like, should I mention? Who cares? I don't have an audience anyways at the moment, so whatever. But yeah, so I'm not going to mention the name of the firm, but I was fired. I had actually been. So the amazing thing about that firm was I had they were actually one of the they'd been a client of ours at the agency, and I had actually ended up getting to know the partners, especially one of the partners, well, when I was at that agency. So earlier on there, I was search marketing. I was hired on as a search marketing strategist. So essentially, my main responsibilities was overseeing the paid advertising campaigns for clients that on the team I was on. So the way that the internal structure of the agency had different teams. I think we only had 2 teams. It wasn't a huge agency, but essentially different teams, and those teams had when I started, they essentially the structure was they had about 2 teams, and they had essentially a similar structure. Each team that had different grouping of stable clients, and so for my role on my team, it was essentially overseeing primarily the strategy for the paid campaigns, with some input on SEO. The way they had it structured when I first came on, I wasn't a really big fan of. There was a big separation between they had an old kind of what I would call a very old school way of looking at it, where the SEO input they wanted from me was more on a technical basis, which is not really my strong suit anyways. And I don't. It's just become less of an issue. I mean, most what if you're using something like WordPress, so many of those content management systems like WordPress essentially have they're built nowadays out the box with a lot of kind of like baseline elements already kind of in place that would help improve get websites search engine optimization from like a technical perspective. There's still things that you can do, but really the area where I've always had the most success is the content marketing element. And it's still very big. That's search engine optimization. I mean, I don't know that it's interesting how it's kind of evolved over the years, but at the time it was really, and I think that was also kind of potentially also just based on the type of people that they'd had in that role before me. It was personality type that was different than my own. But either way, so I was there. I was overseeing the paid campaigns. Primarily, it was kind of where more of my focus was, at least starting off there. And the law firm was one of the clients, and I had made a point when I started. I wanted to, that it. I knew going in already just from the experience I had had that how competitive PPC campaigns are for law firms, especially if they're doing personal injury, and that is one of the practice areas this firm had. And I knew that they hadn't really seen a lot of great results. Finding out later, actually from partners themselves, they were actually really real close to dropping the agency before I started. And one of the things that I asked to do was to have essentially like a nice little quick meeting. It's like a 30-minute phone call meeting on Fridays with one of the partners, who was the one that was more tech savvy. Had actually, he ended up telling me he had set up the Google Ads campaign or the Google Ads account and the initial campaigns that they ever ran for their firm himself, and had done all right. And so he knew a little bit of, at least, he could talk to me about kind of what they tried in the past with some understanding of the whys and why things hadn't worked. So, I had ideas I wanted to try doing this. I got to learn a little bit what they did before, what had happened, why they tried they weren't doing things anymore or went in a different direction, all that stuff. And we also ended up developing a good rapport, getting to know each other. And eventually that actually led to an opportunity. The partners had with a couple of business partners, had ended up buying a bar downtown. And I know one time he invited me to basically meet them for a beer there, instead of doing a normal phone call. And so I, ended up going and hanging out with them, and then it became more regular that I would hang out with them. And it was actually so not long after. I think it was St. Patty's Day, 2021. Just over a month after that last vlog I actually uploaded, they made me an offer. I was hanging out. I actually went out with a friend of mine who's another attorney. Who I wanted him to meet them just as a networking thing, just connecting with them. He was working with he was working in Tampa at the time, still working in Tampa. But it was a good connection. Wanted to connect them and just hang out because I like the partners, and still do. But that was we were hanging out, and he made me an offer to join the firm. Was for a good bit more than I was being paid at the agency. But I ended up turning him down, and I told him that, because I had just stepped into the new role, and I was really interested in, what I was going to be able to learn in that role, especially working more closely with the woman who had founded the agency. She was one that I respected. Again, I'm using these because I'm going to talk about this too. We'll probably won't have time within the restriction of this vlog, but I still respect her for her ability. She made my life difficult when I left. I guess I can see why. I don't know. There's a whole. We'll talk about in a different vlog. But either way, the time I had sought out this promotion, this opportunity, and was just getting into it, and I didn't want to walk away from that, even though the money that the partners were offering me was it was actually not even. It was significantly better, but I just felt, for me, it has been something in my working career. So it's been something that I've been more. The driver for me has not been. Money's important. I'm a homeowner, and you need to pay the bills, and it's not cheap here. Florida's gotten quite expensive, especially in these last 3 years. So that stuff, you have to make money, but that's not really the big thing for me in this career. Is more than really the driving thing is having, I'm looking for that experience. I'm looking to learn. I'm looking to be able to put my stamp on the thing and say, hey, this is a strategy we created. This is something that you hadn't seen before. This is game changing. So the ego is still in play, obviously, but it's not money. It's really been able to. I've wanted to be able to work on really interesting projects and to learn the why and how to do it. Not just I don't want to be I don't want to sell people on doing something that every single time you do something in marketing, typically in my experience, really every time I take on a new project, I'm doing something new. But still, what I'm trying to say is I turned them down at that time. I turned them down, and because I wanted to really pursue this opportunity and this new position within the agency and working more closely with the founder and the owner. And so progressing. So that was in March. So as we move into May, I actually end up getting an opportunity to work with a leadership coach. And this was an interesting opportunity because it came from so a mutual friend of mine, or it's really more of a connection. She was the wife of this person that my buddy who'd been hanging out with me on St. Patty's Day when I got that first offer. that used to be, it's his ex-wife, but we were at their his parents' like beach house place that he had, that had the people over for kind of like a, it was like during the holidays, a little get together. I don't know when that exactly was. Maybe it was, I think it was still cold out, but so it was maybe, I can't remember exactly when it was, but we were there together. I remember mentioning to her, I'd been interested in doing more public speaking, and it's something that I still have an interest in. It's another thing that doing vlogs and doing this stuff is helpful. And now this thing's gonna run out of battery. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough time to finish all of this. Maybe this is gonna be another rehash of maybe another practice run of a video as I am trying to figure out what I want to do. But wow, part of this is just me learning all the things I need to invest in if I'm gonna want to do video on a regular basis, because this is nuts. This battery is not lasting that long at all. Yeah, I don't know. It does not look good. I might pause this. I'm gonna see if I can put in another. Yeah, I'm gonna stop this, change out the battery, and finish my thoughts, as rambly as they are, because I've gone this far. Okay. All right. So, swapped out the battery, and want to continue going because just feeling this right now. I don't want to go too much further. It's pretty late. I really do want to practice a little bit before calling it tonight and actually upload that first vlog. But yeah. So where was I going? Okay, so I'm just kind of like move through kind of just some of the bigger events, and that just seems to be a way that I could do this right now. So I had this conversation, and I with a acquaintance's ex-wife. I was talking to her about my desire to do more public speaking, and it was something that she's done, a decent amount of for her career. And she was mentioning to me she'd worked with this guy, and that that this person had helped her kind of just improve her public speaking skills. Something he did, like that. He actually was a professional public speaker, and I don't remember if she said she would connect me with them or not. Maybe she said she would try. But either way, it was just conversation that we had. But I think it was a couple weeks later that he reached out to me on LinkedIn, and we ended up having a Zoom meeting not long after, and I was willing to kind of work out a deal with me. It essentially it was really more, he has a lot of public speaking experience, but he, really is kind of became more of a leadership coach. But actually someone that really has had a huge impact on my life. He's something I've worked with, I worked with for the starting in, I think we officially started in May that year in 2021, and currently not working with him, only because I'm kind of going through this like reevaluation and a bunch of changes and stuff, and having been fired, I had to I basically had to I just had to, I don't know what's the best way to say it. I just wasn't able to really pay for his services for the moment. He's amazing. He's helped me out a ton. I will be working with him again in the future. And it's actually interesting, just kind of, he plays an important part in kind of my how my life has evolved. And even though I ended up being fired, the reasons for that are separate from the benefit that he's brought to my life. And so it's something, and it's a key element in telling this story. So I started working with him in May, and moving into the summer months of that year, so my ex and I, we were starting to see a new therapist, but things that had gotten were just really tough. My brother came and visited. I remember at one point in I think it was probably towards the end of May or something like that. But I just remember it was just, we were so stressed, and I remember like neither she nor I were in a good spot at all. And I remember he came by. He was visiting. I don't know if he was staying with us at the previous house. We have a guest bedroom, and so I'm not sure if he was staying with us, or he might have. I think he might have been staying with my mom, and my stepdad still lived in Florida, not far from me at the time, and so I think he might have been staying with them. But I remember he came over, and we were going to go play tennis. And I remember that day I was working remotely. We were all basically remote at the agency. The agency went remote, quick. March 15th of 2020, lockdown happened, instantly went remote. And most of the people at that agency were, I'm an extrovert person. It's another thing where I think for me in this period right now, where I'm wanting to restart my agency and also figuring out stuff and trying to save money. This is an opportunity to be able to talk. Even though I'm not getting the energy from people, like getting that energy back from people, or that that aspect when you're an extrovert, where you're just spending time talking with people always energizes me. But actually doing this and talking, I think, helps, because I get to I can feel a little bit depressed if I'm just like working from home on my own too long. But for a lot of people at the agency are pretty introverted, and so most people didn't want to come back into the office. I like having the option to just kind of have an office I go to, or if I want to work from home. But that day, I remember one of these days my brother was visiting. He was hanging out. I didn't want to I wanted to kind of switch things up that day. I took him to go work at a coffee shop that I liked working at downtown. And it was something I mentioned this in one of the vlogs that I did before, back in 2021, that he was willing to come do some, he wanted to do some work for me with my side hustle. And especially because he was in hospitality at the time, and basically, they were, I think, still furloughed. I don't think there was much going on where he was living. And I remember in the vlog I mentioned that he was willing to help me out again and learn. And so he was doing some stuff for me. So I think that was part of the reason he was visiting. Actually, was wanted him to come and kind of establish some habits, make sure he was, I was available to him in person. He could always call me and stuff, but for him, that's a helpful thing for him to kind of be there in person with me and kind of get things rolling. But I remember just being real distracted. When he was visiting, just wasn't in a great mood. I remember getting a ton done that day, and then the plan was we were gonna go play a little tennis. And then I think go meet up some friends downtown. I remember just being in this bad mood. We went to play tennis, and I remember just, I couldn't. My mind was just not, just was elsewhere. I'm not a great tennis player or anything like that, but I'm not terrible. I just could not make a good connection on the ball, and I was struggling with my temper quite a bit at the time, and I remember losing it. I just remember breaking the just slamming the racket, breaking the racket, just being in a real just terrible place, honestly. And my brother's like, obviously broke the racket. We leave. I remember when we got back, Maya and I, my ex-wife, and I, we got into a pretty bad fight over this, again, something that was just the dumbest thing. And with my brother there, it had gotten so bad we couldn't even really keep it to just, it was like, if you've been in those places where, you have a friend that's, or maybe, you've been in that position yourself where, it's just so bad that it doesn't really even matter if people around, you just start getting into it. And, that's the place that we were at. We were stressed, we were tired. And we weren't able to help each other like we used to. And so that was, at that time it was getting bad. That was May. I started working with Thomas, my leadership coach, and it was fortuitous timing. Actually working with him was helpful. It was really helpful to have someone I could talk to. So we started because as I said, I wanted to do more public speaking. It's still something I would like to do more of in my career. I think, again, the more I think about it, it's, to be able to get in this habit of doing the videos for agency, it just opens up opportunities for me to be able to do more speaking anyway. So again, all this comes back into it, the reasoning for doing this. But this format being the messy, unfiltered format, it started with that, but it ended up kind of being just kind of a leadership coach, kind of just giving me, real good, good advice, good recommendations in the moment, and just given the timeline that he was in my life. It's just crazy. So he was seeing this, period of me, I'm balancing, trying to balance this role that had gotten real tough at the agency. So I fully, by June of that year, I really had fully stepped into that team lead strategist role. And we had restructured the company within that time as well. The owner of the company, she actually ended up hiring this other woman who was a really, really interesting person. I liked her a lot. She had more of a kind of a traditional advertising ad agency background, which was something that was really needed. She had, the way that she approached stuff was interesting. And with her, we were able to, essentially what we ended up doing was kind of splitting off the paid, essentially management of paid campaigns to its own team. And she oversaw that team. And then I was essentially, my biggest thing I was doing was creating drafting these strategies for our clients, getting to pitch new clients, which I loved. I loved doing that. That's like one of my favorite things. And part of that is kind of, that public speaking skills and stuff I was getting from spending time working with Thomas. And, he had me join Toastmasters. Actually, technically the last video that I had uploaded on my personal channel for, over 3 years was a recording of a Toastmaster speech. Really great experience, by the way. Recommend that to anybody that just wants to improve it's technically for public speaking, but we're talking your ability to manage meetings and, just network and things like that. Just, doing Toastmasters for even a little bit, it's just an incredible benefit. And you meet some great people. And so, through doing that, it helped me improve my ability to present strategies. And at the time, we were doing these presentations over Zoom. I remember the first one I did was such an awkward feeling experience because talking for almost an hour, and that Zoom interface, I'm just still, to this day I don't like it. Don't have to do nearly as much anymore. But I remember, getting more comfortable with that, and working on those public speaking skills really helped there. And I really liked doing that. It was fun. And so, but it was tough. So we in our for digital marketers, there might have been a slight downturn in the first a month or two of the the pandemic, but the pandemic it really forced this incredible shift. Digital marketing became the thing that once companies were really sitting there and thinking about it, they took a lot of that money that in a given year they would invest in doing events or just things in the real world per se, and I'm trying to come up with a better way to phrase that, but without being able to do that, they took all that money and reinvested it in doing online advertising. And so it felt like I've said this so many times since, but it felt like our industry advanced 3 years in one, and it's just kept progressing kind of at this rapid pace ever since, which is kind of part of the things I'd like to talk about in these vlogs, because that's a big part of kind of me, especially now thinking about where I want to go with my career. But we were extremely busy. I say it now as we were just at that time we were just really, really busy. And for agencies, the business model really works. For the business model to really work for an agency to be an agency with actual employees, really the only way that it continues to work is that you essentially have to be bringing in more business than you can ever really handle at the given time. It's odd. I don't know. That probably makes sense to some people, depending on what your background is. But it's tough. It's tough for the staff, the people that are working. So for me, they didn't pay that great. Again, it wasn't like I was getting paid. It was I don't know. Depending on viewpoint, whatever. I'm not going to say the number, but I don't know. I don't feel like I want to say the number right now. Either way, it was not that income was not enough to sustain to be able to pay for my house, my wife in law school, to pay for our life. So that's why I had the side hustle as well. But the amount of work, the amount of time that was being required was steadily growing, and it became challenging. So I was struggling with feeling a burnout. By June, I was really struggling maintaining that. I remember I think during that time, my business partner and I also had it's funny, we had a client that we ended up doing really, we were doing this paid advertising campaigns and doubled his revenue or something like that, the amount of monthly revenue he was getting, and then the guy was just a real fucking asshole and was being just such a difficult person to work with. And then On top of that, the general just kind of, emotionally difficult, challenging conversations I was trying to have. That night, we were both trying. My ex-wife and we were trying to have to try to, save our relationship. Try to get past this. To get to a better place again. And all that stuff. It was just such a challenge. It was such a difficult time. And so, having Thomas as leadership coach was huge because, he gave me some really critical advice. He was willing to give me advice too, on, I talked to him about everything. Like I talked to him. I've always considered myself an open book. It's another reason why I want to make the vlogging a regular thing, because it just seems like a good format for me, because I like to share, I just talk about what I like to talk about, what I'm going through. I want to get it off my chest. So, and he was willing to give me good advice, on, the struggles I was having in my relationship. I remember he pointing out some really, really key resources, some really helpful resources, especially on our, on learning more about our emotions and, where there's more meaning in certain feelings that, I hadn't really, I kind of had more of a just almost like negative way of viewing that emotion, and not understanding kind of like that there's more meaning to it. It was just helpful. So, and again, I'm coming up on the time, the time restriction for filming. So, and I'm already adding this to kind of where I was starting. So I'm trying to think about how to end what I feel is going to be the second vlog. So I want to move, what I want to try, like, I don't know if I have enough time to really actually cover, having Thomas come in, which is a huge element in kind of my story of these last 3 years of having that leadership coach. And what I was wanting to kind of get to was, like moving kind of towards the final points of my time at this agency, and the final kind of moments of my relationship with my ex-wife. I think I'll probably just save that to the next vlog. So this is kind of a good place to kind of keep this in like a little bit of a, I don't want to call it cliffhanger. I mean, come on, but just kind of we're moving to kind of a critical stage here, that I think I'll probably split up over several vlogs of kind of talking about those final stages. Because in the midst of this, I also got a second offer from the partners at the firm, which I ended up taking. And they offered me even more money, which was really a huge bonus at the time, especially with all the stuff I was dealing with and about to deal with, in separating from and getting a divorce. But yeah, so having them, and just I got to a point I was just burnt out at the agency. I felt, I think I have enough time within this to say that I did end up. I actually ended up. So the demands were, it was becoming more and more demanding. One thing that I was frustrated as hell about was, I've had this, I had suggestions on some internal improvements that we could be making to the team that I think that I thought would really help with some of our issues in terms of, our execution, our fulfillment side. And that was a big deal. It was something that I spent time talking with the owner of the agency about. But frustratingly, I felt like little progress was made. And that really was something that was a pain in the ass for me at the time, because the other responsibility I had as the team lead, the strategist, was I was the one that was I was the point person in our meetings with clients. And, I don't have a problem being in a meeting with a client if the client, if I've done something wrong, and, the client is suitably upset about it. I'm going to be there. Like, I will understand that reason, the mistake, the why, especially if I was the one that made it. That's okay. I've been in that situation plenty of times. It's part of marketing. I mean, it's just, it's tough. Especially when you're on the agency side. What gets frustrating is being in a meeting with a client who's pissed because the Facebook ad that they want, it's taking a month to go up. And that's it's a real valid reason to be pissed. And I can't really say anything because the reason that is happening is that we had one videographer who was so overworked and behind that from other things, other projects. I can't really bring that into that conversation. And that stuff frustrated me. So, that's not something you bring to that client because that's not part of the, that should not be a thing. That's not for them to worry about or to give us any slack over. I mean, we need to, our promise to them is that they hire us to do a thing. We should be able to do it in a reasonable amount of time. My frustration at the time being, talking to the owner, like, why can't we get another videographer? Why can't we use other solutions to get around this? It was frustrating. That was a big part of what was leading to my feeling of burnout. Even though I ended up getting, before I left, and it'll be kind of that one of the final notes that I can leave on this vlog is that, she ended up promoting me again into the senior marketing strategist. And she would verbally, she would give me, I know she was doing what she could to kind of keep me around, I think, keep me happy. I don't know what she was doing, but I mean, I remember I just feeling that the frustration, that promotion came with it was just kind of like a title change, really. It was, it didn't come with a pay raise. It didn't come with they had I remember the agency technically had this internal leadership team that she just, I'll be honest with you, was only women were on that team. I don't think I don't know. And my feeling was that they did not want me on that team to be on the leadership team for that reason. Given the discussions I had with the owner, and that she did seek my opinion on stuff anyways, and had me working on their biggest strategies. And before I left, I am happy to say I was, one thing that was fun was to work on strategy for the biggest client that she'd ever taken on, and to be a part of that was really fun. Exhausting, and I remember just some sleepless nights, putting all that together. Some of that being, I do struggle with just taking on more than I can chew. But either way, that was a really interesting point. But I just remember this feeling of just kind of like, I got that promotion, but it didn't feel like anything had changed. Yeah, that was the thing. And I was needing change. And a lot of change was about to happen. So in one area where I kind of needed some change, it didn't happen, which was at that job. And so change happened in some other, in basically other areas. I don't know, I'm trying to wrap this up in a way that sounded, I was trying to put a little ribbon on that, but that wasn't really very good. But either way, I'm gonna stop this vlog because I'm almost at the threshold here anyways. And we're almost at this point, so we're moving into basically in July, of that year, was July, August, essentially. Okay, I really struggling. I cannot freaking do it with this crazy time limit. I gotta figure out a different way. But either way, in the meantime, I did want to put an actual cap. I want to have some sort of a capper on this second vlog, because I really am starting to feel more of how I want to go about this. And that's really just kind of telling the story. So at this agency again, I really got an opportunity over about, I think I was there just about 2 years. A wild time to be at that agency, especially during COVID, to kind of have experienced that. I joined that agency. I don't know if I'd mentioned this in one of the previous vlogs I had, but I had joined that agency because I had wanted to see what an agency was like, see how it was set up internally, something that was of that size. Because I had worked for myself for a good chunk of time and tried to, I'm saying right now I want to restart my agency, and my approach on how I'd like to do it is going to be very different, especially once I've signed up a couple of additional clients. There's some stuff I really am going to be specifically putting in place, and that's actually more of kind of things that I don't know if maybe I will. I'm not sure if I'll talk about that stuff here as much, but on this channel, on my personal channel as much. But there's a whole different approach I want to put into it, and actually more than anything, a lot of the insights I'm going to be employing on my setup moving forward will be based off of what I learned as the CMO at the law firm. When I took the opportunity at this agency that I was at, this digital marketing agency, I was there from, so I started there in 2019 and left in August of 20. So what was it? I think, it was, I worked through August. I think officially my last day was September 10th of 2021. And so it was just over 2 years there. And I wanted to see, I wanted to learn about how an agency was set up, how it was managed, how you can scale an operation like that. And so I got to learn a good bit about that in my time there. I'm really, I will always say, no matter what, I like to look at, the positives on a situation. For the 11-year relationship I have with my ex-wife, I'm very thankful, for the experience, for what we learned, for what we did for each other. There's no divorce that is easy, especially when there's not like either way, that's it. It's just, a divorce is extremely hard. And I think so in the next vlog, or the next few vlogs where we're going to be moving into, and I'll really, because I want to try to keep this within a reasonable amount of time per vlog. I really think, 30 minutes is, I don't know, it's whatever. But it's so messy right now. But I'm trying to figure it out as I go. And I'll get better as I go, I think, I hope. I'm processing kind of how I'm thinking through and talking out loud. That's what I do. As what we're getting to, so kind of moving into July of 2021, it was a extremely difficult month. That is a month where I officially was given the promotion, but that promotion did not come with a real pay raise. And as I was mentioning, it really felt like it was just kind of I don't know. I remember at the time I really felt like it was a bit of a joke. I don't know. I felt like it was kind of something to placate me, keep me kind of just, I was expressing frustration. I'm one that I will express, I if I'm working at a place, I like to drive change, and so I like to express, what issues I see and, my points, and I think that was, the owner of the agency. I think she was, to be honest with you, I feel like there was a lot of internal politics going on at that agency, and I mentioned they had an internal leadership team that I wasn't on. They didn't even. I got an opportunity to be on one meeting, and it just felt like nothing was happening. And there was big challenges we were facing, and I was feeling burnt out. People on my team were struggling. This is a thing that I've seen a lot, especially it's a challenge when it comes to, we're at the hybrid office or fully remote office, is just that, dealing with that feeling of isolation that some people can have, how managing people when you don't see them face to face, it can be difficult. It's something I've learned quite a bit about over these last 3 years. And at the time, I was much less experienced when it came to that, but I was trying my best to try to, take some of the feedback I was getting and trying to work out a better solution. I just didn't know how best to go about it, and honestly, I was, it was all I could do to try to, get these strategies, make these pitches, manage these clients in these meetings, manage the clients I had in my side hustle. Yeah, I mean, that was a thing. That was tough. It was a big reason that I wanted to pivot my career, and getting that opportunity to work as the CMO for this law firm was big, because I was so burnt out on trying to manage all of these clients, with some that had reasonable expectations that we just weren't doing a good job of internally efficiently executing, managing kind of a wonky sales pipeline, and had poor miscommunication or just miscommunication issues. That, again, another big challenge when it's a remote workforce, and then just the emotional challenges I was facing, just kind of these, especially in July, June, July of that year. I remember having these really, eye-opening, challenging, long conversations with my ex-wife of just kind of where we were at. I remember it was a 5-hour just tough discussion that finally got to a point where she was able to, and again, I was really thankful for the skills that we were getting from going to couples therapy and allowing us to have a conversation like this that didn't actually end in a fight, us yelling at each other, was that she was religious. I know it's interesting now. I've especially going through this most recent experience, I found myself opening more up to this idea of God, unlike I've had since I was like in middle school. I'm not really interested in organized religion, to be honest. I've seen a lot of hypocrisy when it comes to people that I don't want to. I like, it's not something that I have any issue. I want people to practice and pursue their form of spirituality however they want to. But in my relationship with my ex-wife, it was something that, I expressed that I was not really interested in church or, that type of experience. And that was something I had been open about since we first got together. When I was 21, she was 19. I mean, her dad is a pastor. Interesting guy as pastor, really, type of person that you would, if you didn't know, if I said it, you'd be kind of surprised. Potentially, he's a really, really good pastor, very charismatic, good speaker, but just a much more colorful person than a lot of other pastors I've met. But he's a pastor, and so when we first started dating, that was something that obviously came up, but it wasn't really an issue at the time. I think especially when her parents went through a really bad divorce, in our kind of moving in our our early to mid 20s. There was times where she was potentially even taking a step back from her feeling of her, like where she was and with her spirituality and her view on religion and what place it had in her life. But as we moved into our 30s, it was something that she she wanted to not only be able to she was getting back into regularly practicing that part and pursuing her faith and going to church regularly. And in this conversation, I remember specifically, it was one of those things where she finally was able to admit to me that that had been a growing thing for her in terms of feeling, growing apart from me, is that she really wanted to be able to share her faith with the person that she was with, and since I just that was not something I was open and willing to do, and she didn't want to force me, and she wouldn't. I mean, we both knew that just wouldn't be a thing, that just wouldn't happen. Again, we're headstrong people, both of us. It was kind of what helped us, as we were a lot more aligned in our early 20s and going to our 20s. And then I said this I believe I said this again, and I don't know, it could have been in the version of the first vlog of me restarting that had some audio issues, so I don't know. But there was a real reason, I think, that we were good for, we came together and were good for each other through our 20s. And then kind of as we had grown into these more confident, capable adults that had been more, we more realized kind of these versions of ourselves that we were, these attributes of ourselves that we felt that or these people that we could be. Gosh, I'm just really struggling on how to say this, but as we grew into ourselves, I think those things that had kept us as us being good as a couple, just those things fell away. I still, even with all this stuff, like I'm so interested in being able to pursue elements of my career, to be able to go after things that I want and make them happen. It's again, we'll get to it as we progress, but learning how to DJ and being able to add that into my life, all this stuff. If we had kids, I don't see it. Things would have changed, and I just wasn't. It wasn't the life I was. That wasn't a life I was finding myself wanting, and that was something that she was wanting, and she, that is a life that she has moved. That's the life that she has now. And I'm not going to really talk more. That's really not part of this vlog of that. Post our divorce, but in terms of why, we separated. I remember that conversation about her being able to open up, because I already kind of had felt that where we were really growing apart in terms of her really feeling ready to have kids, and I'm was feeling just less and less wanting to have kids. It was just, those are big things. I mean, if you look at the reasons why people in relationships don't work, I mean, it's those differences on values, and they typically kind of lump those into some big categories, and money being one of them. And that wasn't something that we had an issue with. Actually, that was an area where we were pretty good. Granted, especially at the end, I essentially was and this may sound jaded no matter what, but I was paying for everything, but I like being a provider. I mean, I feel if I'm in a relationship, that's what I prefer. And that's something that that's important for me. I like to, it's the area that I like to be. I like to be able to provide. I don't feel this element of like that's an issue. Paying for everything. That's kind of just that's where I'm more comfortable. So that wasn't a problem, but the religion element was a growing problem. That conversation really brought to light just how big of an issue it was. I hadn't even realized that it had grown to that degree. And it's why I really appreciate that she was willing to like share that with me in that way. And I didn't come out in some sort of fight, that it was more of it was a difficult conversation. A lot of tears were shed in that conversation, but that it was something that came out in that way was big. That meant a lot. So, I mean, I actually will always appreciate that she was willing to say that to me. Because it helped. And then where we were kids, I was seeing her going to law school and coming out as that opportunity for us to continue on that power couple trajectory. I didn't know, at the time of, I mean, again, especially in June, July, I'd already had that first offer from Jason, and there was that feeling that, that was something that he still, that was an opportunity there. Even though I turned down that first offer, our relationship had only continued to improve after that. Especially as I was kind of feeling really burnt out at the agency. I already had this feeling that was something that could be a possibility. And so it really was something like that thought of, she being an attorney, me being this, I think I looked at as marketing director at first, but really kind of their chief marketing officer, which is what I was. That's fine. I don't even know why I angled it that way. Either way, but yeah. So, but me seeing that was really a cool, that path forward just seemed so interesting to me. But it was all career focused, and where for her, she was really interested in, finally starting on that taking that step into that next phase of life and starting that family. And it just wasn't something I wanted, and so that's why it was, it was tough. And so we felt like it really, I think I mentioned this in the last vlog, but that feeling of like two ships passing in the night. I mean, we were still making time to, have sex on a fairly regular basis. I think, we were having sex at least once a week. And, I say it just honestly, purely because, those are one of those things that, in, couples I know that, other couples I know that have been divorced, that stuff, can be a leading edge sign on when things are bad. I think for us, it was something that, our sex life was something that kept us going. It was a good element. It was always a good element. It was something that always that got us through tough times in the past, and it was something we still maintained. And it kind of became something where it didn't feel as romantic towards the end because we were essentially like scheduling it with each other. But a lot of that was also because of how busy we were, and I've always been a more night owl inclined, and when we were working fully remote at the time, it was easy to still kind of be up late, and I think didn't ever have a meeting that was before like 9 o'clock. So I wasn't sleeping much for sure, but our schedules became very different. For her, she had early classes a lot. She was pretty typically up by 5. I definitely wasn't. She was asleep, way earlier than me too. And so we just weren't getting to see or spend a lot of time with each other at that point. So, it was, it just felt like it felt like a strange roommates towards the end there, which was tough. But yeah, I think, because I think I've gotten to a point where now it would just moving into kind of just some of the events that happened in July of that year. A little bit more maybe. I kind of want to maybe spend a little bit more time talking about, the kind of my final feelings on that digital marketing agency, and just kind of that, how things ended there. I want to talk about the last trip that my ex-wife and I took, which was right at the end of July, and that was just a difficult experience, rough trip, and then kind of that lead into the getting that second offer from the partners, and the timing on that, and choosing to take the offer, and how things wrapped up, coming to that decision to separate. A lot of this happened over a course of essentially going from August to, honestly, late July to September. Basically late July to mid September. I had left the job I'd been at and had separated from my wife, and knew I was going to be having to find a new place to live, because part of that, well, I don't know if I said at that point I was fully sure that was what was going to need to happen, though when we chose to when we made the decision to actually separate, we were pretty much it felt pretty final to me. I'll be honest. I don't know if I can't speak for her, but to me, I know when I said that, I think, and we said this it was in a couples therapy session, that talking about next step potential options, and going over like all the stuff we tried, and this couples therapist, she was great. She was very direct, but and we were saying, I think separation might be something that you should consider, and saying out loud, like, I think that's what we need to do. When it came to actually doing it and her moving out, it felt pretty final, and it was. But I would like to go, there's a lot to talk about there. That was a wild time. And so, I think I'm going to save that for the next vlog. Man. Again, my name is Stephen Traith, and if someone's watching this and getting something from this, that's, I hope, well, I appreciate you for sticking around watching. And I just hope I can continue with this, and be able to actually tell this whole story, 'cause it's kind of interesting, at least to me. It's nice to actually talk through it. So that's it for this vlog. Till next time.